Hey y'all, it's December 29th. I'm gonna take my braids out today. As you can tell, there's a lot of growth. So it is time. I got my hair braided on that's a way I actually don't know. Let me see. Let me check my messages with my braider because I'm not seeing it on my calendar, even though I know it is somewhere there. My calendar's just been really full. Got it braided November 13th. So that means I rocked it for 6 weeks and 4 days. Much longer than I actually thought it had been. I thought we were at 5 weeks, so I'm glad we got another weekend, although we've been doing this. It was boho, which is why you can see some of this. The boho got quite tangled because I was not taking care of it properly. For those who do boho, you know the struggles. And so I cut it out. Of course, you can see as I pull that, it's a little remnant of it. Pulled it out just to extend the life of it for a bit, as I was very much busy and on the go. So we are going to take them out and see a lot of growth. I feel like I had more growth on one side of my head than the other, which I find interesting. Feel like I always overestimate how long my natural hair is. Recently had it straightened. My first silk press, so I should actually know how long it is. I think it's about here. Um, when it was straight, but I always underestimate and cut so much lower than I need to on my braids. I'm also at my parents' house, so this is my childhood bedroom. But we'll start with a pretty low cut um, for now and bring it up as we go. I love getting braids in. I hate the process of taking them out. I know it's something that you can pay people for, but it does seem like I don't know, maybe when I'm busier, maybe when I'm like a parent and have less time, it's something I would do, or just more money, it's something I would pay for. Um, but there is time in my life where I do like to kind of sit idle and watch TV or talk on the phone. And so I'm always like, that is just when I can do it. I also feel like whenever I do cut my braids, I'm like very tempted just to leave that as its own style because what a fun length. Like that's actually really cute. Like really cute. Let me see one more time. I might show this to my braider. This length was kind of really nice. It was the loudest chair to ever exist. But yeah, that's definitely way lower than I need it to be. Then what I tend to do is just put one half to the side, maybe do a little less tension on my scalp, but still make sure it's separated. And just kind of tie it off into a plait. I'm a little nervous about doing the braid takedown today. I was cooking 2 days ago and I did there's some braids that didn't get cut. I did manage to thankfully where the knife was positioned actually hit my nail. So it went straight through my nail and into the skin on this thumb. And then my nail broke on this side as well. So they're kind of both just have a little slit. I'm not cutting either because either is quite low. Um, Although we might see throughout this video that that is a decision I decide to do, but it means that this finger, which I will use the most for taking my braids out, literally has a slit where hair will probably snake the whole time. So you might see me try to do, as I'm doing right now, try to do a lot with my left hand. Tend to be much more gentle in the removal of the braids from the front section of my hair, just because they are on my hairline, which tends to be, thinner and finer hair. So let's see, and especially on my hairline, it's probably actually quite short because we have clearly, clearly gone really low. Um, yeah. So I spent Christmas holiday. I'm still, of course, back home. Spent Christmas holiday at my parents'. I came home on the 23rd. So I've been here for about 6 days. I'm gonna head back to the city tomorrow. Um, I've never done Christmas holiday actually, like Christmas celebrations. Other than New Year's, sometimes I stay at my parents', sometimes I go back to the city. Um, 9 times out of 10 back to the city. Um, I've never done Christmas away from my parents. Um, I know it's something that will happen eventually as I start my own family and things, whether it's, just with a partner or with children, the balancing of two different families or multiple families. I myself have an abundance of families already without having a partner dynamic like that at the moment, being adopted, and knowing biological families as well as my adopted family. Um, I was hoping to see my biological cousins during the Christmas break, but the weather, ooh, that nail, the weather kept us away. We are now up to my natural hair here, which means it is to here. So we could have gone, probably here would be like my comfort zone. Um, and so hoping to be able to make up that time and catch up with folks soon. Ugh, we are out. I used to dye my hair all the time, so I actually still closer to the color that my braids are. Look at that product buildup. Ugh. This is the part I do love about the removal of the braids is just the cleaning, being able to do uh scalp scrub and really get out everything is my favorite part. I wish I brought like a pin or something. We'll just tuck that. Of course, in true Afro form, does not care to be told what to do. Um, let's go here. And so, yeah, the abundance of family is an incredible privilege that I have. Um, I think often when I tell folks that I'm adopted, there's either two camps of reactions. There's either the camp that goes, oof, and they only see tragedy. And then I think there's the other camp that, and this are like people who aren't adopted and don't understand adoption on that personal level. So they either see tragedy or they see just like blessings, just like that you were saved from said tragedy. Um, and two things can be true at once. The fact that my mother led such a life in which she was unable to raise me or my siblings is incredibly, incredibly sad. The fact that I did not really spend time with her. My birth in itself and my first couple of months on the planet were really traumatic in a lot of ways. Is tragic, is traumatic, as I said. Um, the fact that I wasn't raised with my bio siblings and will never be able to get that time back. The fact that I was raised outside of my culture, very sad, all those types of things. Um, but the fact that I was raised in a family that loved me, that opened their home, their hearts, their arms, everything for me, a blessing. The fact that I know love so deeply, an incredible blessing. There are plenty of people who are not adopted and are not afforded the things that I was afforded through my adopted family. And so two things can be true at once. It's something I sometimes struggle with, the duality of it all, um, especially now being older and having found my biological family, the balancing both of, you know, having siblings on both sides and wanting to spend time with all of them, but knowing that time is so limited is a interesting thing. But I try to look at it that I'm blessed with abundance. The the problem of limited time and of limited time with so many people to love is a beautiful, beautiful thing. Some people feel the limitation of time, but also the limitation of love. And so I recognize my blessings in that. I think as I get older, I'm really sorry, I can see out the window here. It's very interesting. Um, as I get older, wanting to adopt myself, at least one child. Um, it's something I think about of like how to best support those dynamics if my child were to find their biological family, or if that access was always there. That access just was not always there for me. Um, and I didn't look until I was an adult for my personal reasons as well as some legal le legal reasons. Um, but how to best support that abundance and all those types of things. I think having looked as an adult for me personally allowed me to be more settled in who I am as a person by the time I did reach out and find people again. At the same time, I'm very sad about the missing of time and celebrations together, etc. And then on the flip of it, I'm glad that when I did find my family, I was more aware of who I was as a person to best navigate that dynamic. I think for a lot of people, being young can often mean, and I mean, I think it was present in my adolescence and early adulthood, I'd say like university years, that sense of trying to find belonging. And I still think I was very firm in my character as a young person. I'm sure my parents are watching this being like, yeah, you really knew who you were and you really stuck to that. But part of me still, whether or not it was evident to other people, um, and I think it happens to everyone, but especially adoptees, that sense of belonging, especially for me being a transracial adoptee, so being Black, raised in a white family, and obviously mixed race, but I was raised in a predominantly white town, a very small town of about 2,000 people. And so for the town, a lot of times I was the darkest person in the town. Um, and so I think that sense of belonging can sometimes look like assimilation. I definitely used to relax my hair when I was younger. I think even the way that I spoke was quite different. Again, you're a product of your environment. So how I spoke when I lived back here versus moving to Toronto. Um, but there's just little things you do for that sense of belonging. Because that sense of belonging also in cases like that where you are other, there's no other way to say it, when you are an other, when you are different than what is surrounding you, is to create a sense of safety. That's really what assimilation um, is that you want to feel safe and accepted. And that acceptance, again, as I said, does come with that often false sense of safety because you are still other. Straightening my hair did not make me white, um, did not erase my blackness. My hair was still different. It was not pin straight. It would puff up in humidity. Um, it was an attempt. Um, and so waiting until I was a little bit more firm in who I was, and I think personally in love with who I was as a Black woman, as an adopted person, um, and all the other intersections in which I exist in, allowed me to add another layer of complexity to my life, which was finding my biological family. I think if I was not as firm in who I was, there would have been a lot of um, attempts to belong. Oh, that was a lot of hair that came out. It's the part I hate about taking braids out. Sometimes you can be super gentle, but also recognizing the fact. I think everyone's realizing how bad my ADHD is. Recognizing the fact that you actually do. I try to remind myself when I do braids that on an average day, you do have more hair than you think fall out of your head. And when you have braids, it does not have anywhere to fall out to because it's stuck in the plait. So it's still falling, but it's caught. And so during the removal of braids, I said I've had mine in for about 6 weeks, 4 days, so just under 7 weeks. Um, the removal of braids is also the removal of that fallen out hair that was caught in your plait. And so, yeah. So, yeah, I have some vlogs I want to release about some of my process of getting to know the bio family, what that looked like. I actually had done Ancestry DNA, and that was how I found them, which was really cool. I went from, knowing that I had 5 siblings in my bio family to finding out I actually had 7, and only knowing two of them in person to having the sibling that's now met the most siblings. So I've now met 7. I just have my sister Olivia. It's just the two of us for sisters. So 6 boys, 2 girls. Um, just have her left to me. So I'm really hoping to do that in 2026. Um, so I will have met everyone. I have 3 siblings in Ontario in Canada, 2 in the States, and 2 in Jamaica. I oddly enough, last year, I believe my Jamaica siblings are the ones I saw the most. No, no, no. One of my Ontario brothers is the one I saw the most. But I was able to see my Jamaica siblings twice last year. Well, this year, 2025, which was such a blessing to be able to do so. yeah, I think my relationship with family and love and abundance and abandonment and blessings and trauma and tragedy through that experience has really helped shape me as who I am as a person, especially my relationship with love, platonically, familial, um, and romantic. I'm hoping in good ways. Only I can say how I think I show up in the world. Uh, Other people can tell me how I show up for them. I can only guess how I show up for them. There's some things that are concrete in which I can be like, oh yeah, this is what I do because it is what I do. Um, but what I do and how it's received are two different things. Impact versus intention, action versus feeling, I guess. But yeah, I've been really trying to love, um, something that's really grounding me. Um, and I have to read it again. I like to read it every year, towards the beginning of the year to kind of reground myself. Is the book All About Love by Bell Hooks. I recently gave it to someone who I've been romantically connecting with. I don't know how to say that. Been talking to. I'm exploring what a deeper romantic connection could look like, I guess. Um, I think something I've been doing as a poet, I have a book that explains, I think really explains a lot about me, and not just current me, but because it's a book that looks at old poems, has reflections and rewrites, I think it explains a lot of the stuff that I've gone through. Obviously, that I've chosen to share through the book, how I feel about it now, how it's shaped me now, um, and such. And so I think it was like week two of talking to said man. Yeah, I think it was around week two. I gave him a copy of my book and was just kind of like, this is a great way to get to know me. Feel free to ask any questions. Feel free to read it, share it, do whatever you want to do with it. I'd done that before, and a man did not read it. And I think that showed me a lot because this was someone who said they really liked me. They actually had gone as far as saying they were in love with me. And so if I'm giving you a piece of artwork that I've created and I'm saying will teach you a lot about me and you're not willing to read it, I'm unsure how much you're willing to learn about me and how much is love versus infatuation. Um, so yeah, that gave me a lot of pause in that connection. And so the person who I'm speaking to currently read it, would have follow-up discussions. It was really, really cool, actually, hearing what pieces they enjoyed, but also getting deeper into even specific words. I'd be like, what was it that really uh, made you choose that word as a repetitive word in that poem? Or how did it feel sharing that piece? Or there was a poem in there. There's a few poems in there about ex-partners and diving into um, those relationships and just asking questions about that. Um, I think, a lot of people will be like, I don't care about someone's past, which I think is a complete erasure of who someone is as a person. Um, I'm not saying that people need to be held for everything that they did in their past. If I was held only for the things that I've done, I think that'd be a terrible, terrible thing. I've said to someone before, I care less about your past. I really care about how it shaped you or chases you. Some people are trying to outrun their past, and those can be very scary relationships to be in, whether that's family, romantic, partner, whatever, friends. It can be really scary because I always say if you're trying to outrun your shadow, you actually just have a running buddy because that's what you're focused on. So if you're always trying to outrun your past, you're the one so focused on it that you really can't outrun it. You're bringing it with you all the time. I like to look at my past in a way of that I think it kind of goes back to what we were talking about, that like two things can be true. Um, it is my past, and it may sad, good, bad, tragic, blessing, traumatic, etc. Um, but everything I've been through, I think I've learned something from, or have something to learn from it if I haven't already learned from it. Um, and my past is what made my present possible. And my present is what makes my future possible. So they all feed into each other, especially if we look at the Ghanaian Tree word of Sankofa, which means you must look back in order to move forward, which I'm very focused on as a Afrofuturist, Afrofuturist and a Black speculative artist. And so my book, as I said, is a great way to get to learn about me in that lens and understand my relationship with past, present, and future, even. Um, Something I think about quite a bit, especially um, being able to connect with my bio family and see that relationship between nature and nurture um, is something I find really interesting. And so, yeah, All About Love by Bell Hooks. Again, ADHD is raging. All About Love by Bell Hooks is a book I give along with my own book um, to current romantic interest in my life. And I believe starting All About Love in the new year. They just have a few books they're clearing up for the end of 2025. And I'll be rereading All About Love. Have it on my phone on the books app with like notes, highlights, things I like to go back to. Um, and another thing I've been grounded in recently in my relationship with all forms of love is a Lauryn Hill song called Tell Him. Um, and it goes, without love, I am nothing at all. Um, I actually plan to get that tattooed in the new year. I also had the blessing of seeing her um, in December in Toronto. Absolutely incredible, incredible show. Took myself on a little solo date and had the best time ever. Incredible, incredible artist. Like just, I got to take a drink of water actually, of tea. Some peppermint tea. Incredible artist. There's a few folks I saw this year, arts wise, where I was just like, oh, I'm not doing enough of an artist. And I'm really excited to bring some more energy and heat and things into 2026 in my arts career wise. Um, there's another saying that I always tell people, which is, and I'm not sure its origins of where I got it from, but it's something I've been saying for years. Um, and then I see it pop up in some poetry that I like from other folks, and songs and stuff. And it goes, everything is either all about love or the absence of it, which means it's still all about love. And then a poem I saw, I can't remember who wrote it. It's an older poem, I believe. And it goes, even the first poem I wrote not about you still had you all throughout it, um, which talks about that absence of love, right? And so even when we do things that don't seem filled with love, there is still love present. When I am angry, my anger often comes from love. And in the moments where I choose to not live, I was going to say a life, in moments where I choose not to live through the lens of love, to be a vessel of love, it is still there. The absence of it is actually so loud. And there are moments, I'm not saying any of this to say that I'm perfect. I've made a lot of mistakes in my lifetime, and I know that I am not done making mistakes. Um, but I try my very hardest to lead a life full of love. I think even in the moments where I'm not leading a life full of love, I think the clouding of my lens of love is due to a lack of love for myself. Um, through different reasons, whether it's triggered from something or whether it's just self-destructive behavior. I'm human, I'm not perfect. Um, but it really stems from a lack of love for self. I look at people um, that have hurt me or people who have hurt other people, just people who you would really look at what they do and just go, wow, like what hatred. And it's usually not hatred for the person that then is hurt by them. It is hatred for themselves, lack of love for themselves. Um, and it doesn't mean it erases what they did. People do terrible things and they deserve to be called terrible things and such. And like terrible things that are terrible should be labeled as terrible things. Understanding and excuse are two different things. So if someone does something to me and I can go, oh, well, this is because, and again, sometimes it's assumptions. Sometimes you do have a better understanding of that person due to time and relation with them. Like, oh, they did this because of their insecurity here, or I wonder if it's because of this dynamic in their family, or this or that, or maybe this triggered them in this way, is understanding. And it's not understanding to, get them off the hook. It's actually understanding out of self-love for you. When you realize that people hurting you has more to deal with their hurt and their dislike for themselves than any sort of genuine dislike for you, you are, it's an act of self-love and protection for yourself to then be able to choose you, love yourself. Um, I have that discussion with some of my girlfriends sometimes because I'll be like, oh, da, 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 da. And they're like, I'll be like, kind of breaking down out loud why I think this person did me wrong in the way that they did me. And my girlfriends will be like, well, that's no excuse. And I said, I never said it was. How they treated me is despicable, terrible. I will not give them the chance again. Or if they are unaware of their impact, I may choose to have a conversation with them like a grown up if it's someone I think I would like to try to still maintain in my life. Um, but I'm actually saying these things out loud because I'm processing the fact that how they treated me is not a reflection of who I am, but is a reflection of who they are. And that is out of self-love. And sometimes I do that in front of my girlfriends because, talking out loud with community can help you process stuff. And maybe they've seen that pattern of behavior in someone else. Um, but again, it's not about excusing behavior, it's about understanding that that pain is actually not yours to hold because it was never yours, it was theirs. And so, something I think about a lot. It is, I don't know if I like the term empathetic person. Um, my mom and I kind of describe me as someone who's always had big feelings, which is why I think I had to become a poet and artist. But having big feelings can be an exhausting thing on this planet in which lots of people have big feelings, but they don't do the work in which to regulate them and, you know, make sure they show up in the world to other folks in a way that is gentle and soft. I always want to be a gentle landing for people. I always want to live up to my middle name, that is Grace, and be able to be someone who can show grace to other people, but also learning a little bit more how to show it to myself and hold it for myself. Again, it's my name. Um, but yeah, I guess this is just unbraiding hair with Shelly and yapping. But yeah, 2026, we're gonna read All About Love one more time. I say one more time, another time, because it's a yearly read for me at this point. Um, I'm also have some other books on the go that I'd like to finish up early 2026 and have been creating a list of other books I want to read. I want to stay in a lot of Black feminist thought this year, focus on expanding my knowledge in that. Um, and so if people have book recommendations, podcast recommendations, let me know. It doesn't have to be only Black feminist. Again, that's just an interest, lifestyle, frame of mind, way of living, etc., heartbeat, etc., that I am looking to nurture more in the coming year. I'm also going to be spending some time the next couple of days as 2025 comes to a close, taking stock of how 2025 went. Um, and by taking stock, I mean accountability as well for the things that, I had set out to do and did not do. And accountability in a way of like not shaming myself, but holding myself accountable for, and, you know, life happens to you. So the accountability that is mine to hold, I'm not going to hold more than is mine. I've been avoiding it though. I know that I've been needing to do it. I always plan out my new year. And the first step is always reflecting on the year that is coming to a close. And I tried to skip that step this year, I think because there were some things I was less proud of in 2025. And yeah, it's been an avoidance thing for me. I've been meaning to do it since I got home. I got home on the 23rd. It's now the 29th, and I've really been avoiding it. And I know once I do it, I'll be very glad that I did it. I don't think there's anything that I've done that is so terrible. Um, I did a lot of wonderful, wonderful things in 2025. There are just, some things that I really would like to do much better in 2026. Um, and some things I would like to leave in 2025. And I think the avoidance might be not wanting to leave those things behind. People have been referring to a lot of stuff as like the new year is like the program, how strict it will be, etc. And tightening your boundaries and your strictness with a bunch of stuff, whether it's people, food, fitness, health, money, etc., are all incredible, incredible things in the name of love and self-love and love for others, etc. But you also know when you have not been strict, that that strictness, that increase in strictness and boundaries, etc., does mean there are things that you're going to be leaving behind and people. Um, Maybe not fully people, but at least the dynamics in which you had with them will change. And sometimes that's hard to move on or move forward differently. And I think that's part of the avoidance for me is that as I, in 2026, I will be turning 32. There are a plethora of things, of course, that I thought I would have done by this age. I think everyone goes through this. When we're younger, we're asked to like think of the rest of our life and lay it out. And I remember thinking 30 was so old when I was younger, and now I'm 30 and it feels young. But as a woman who would like to give birth once at the least, um, which is something I've had to come to terms with because I would be I would be fine if it was not in the cards. Um, I'm sure it would hurt, but as a child of adoption, I've always known that I would adopt. Um, but as I get older, my interest in giving birth, um, for plenty of reasons, grows. And I'm realizing when I think of the type of person I would like to marry and start a family with, um, part of that interest is what a child that is both genetically ours would look like. Is something that interests me. But again, if it's not in the cards, it's not in the cards. I would be sad. But as a child of adoption, I would understand the multiple avenues that are ahead of me. And ultimately, it would be about being a good mother, however that child came into my life. Um, but all that to say, that is, if I want to see if that is in the cards, time is a thing. And so the program indeed must be stricter in a lot of ways because time flies. I feel like I just turned 19, but in May I turned 31, and this coming May I'll turn 32. And so time flies. Does not mean I'm rushing into things. I want to be very clear on that. I'm not rushing in, I'm not trying to settle for a partner just to reach these milestones. I think, if anything, when I think about what I would want in a partner, part of the strictest things are what a child would deserve as a father. Um, and that has been a guiding thing for me. And so, yeah, it's not about rushing, because I'm very much not trying to rush into something, but being more intentional, being stricter, um, as to make the best use of the time in which I do have. Um, but at the same time, that if I don't find that person who would be a wonderful husband and father, um, or if I think I found or find that person and that's not the role in which they want to play, um, that maybe there's something different out there for me. Who knows? But very much in the not settling phase of my life, and that strictness is different to me, settled in a lot of ways, in a lot of avenues of my life, and my many, I was gonna say my many years, in my 31 years on this planet, which is not that many at all. Um, and it's not something I'm looking to do moving forward. And so the program is indeed getting stricter. And I think that strictness, as we've talked about a lot throughout this unbraid and yap sesh, is an act of self-love. I think some people take it over the top and it then doesn't become about self-love. Sometimes self-protection, you can protect yourself too much from the world. We see it when people are going through stuff and they want to heal only in isolation. I find that very hard when I'm connected with people because I do isolate sometimes for like a day or two. Um, but people who isolate for long periods of time, I used to do that. And I look back at all those times where I was really bad, like down bad, depressed, because I do have chronic depression. Um, and all those times where I was really, really like down and out, it was never in isolation where that moment of feeling better happened. It was always moments in which I was with people. And maybe it was the sound of multiple people laughing at the same time, um, or even on a dance floor. But moments shared in community, connection and community always made me realize that things could get better. And so it's something that I have been struggling with in connections as of late, of like when people want to isolate and spend time with themselves. And I don't know their personal balance of how much time alone in isolation is good for them with the balance of getting outside. Because sometimes it can go the other way, right? Where someone actually might need a time to breathe and reflect and sit in what is happening, because what is happening or happened is real, and distraction is just distraction and it's going to catch up to you someday. And sometimes the longer we put off stuff, like reflecting on the previous year, the bigger it becomes this like rain cloud over us. When we could just be basking in sunlight um, much sooner than we think we can. And it's really hard for me to see either ends of that because I've existed on either ends where I've gone straight distraction or I've gone pure isolation and just sitting in it, sitting in the pain, the grief, the suffering. Um, and it's for me has always been about finding that balance. And I can't know what balance is good for other people, but sometimes outside looking in, you can see this nail is on its last leg. You can see immediately sometimes that the balance that someone is doing is detrimental, is bad for them, just based on how they're showing up in the world. Um, I don't really, I'm gonna have to watch this back to see how we got here. But yeah, it's something I've been trying to figure out, um, how to navigate best. especially as a person with big feelings. Um, and I think if your community is not who lifts you up and heals you, you're existing in the wrong community. And we have multiple communities, but if the community you're looking at as like your immediate support system, friends, family, whatever, in those moments of grief is not the one that can lift you up, which again is why I do this inner work of trying to figure out what my role is when a community member needs that level of care during a hard time, then that's not really a community you want to be in, let alone if it's a community that can't communicate. Like, listen to those two base roots of those words: commune, community, communication. If y'all can't communicate with one another, I don't know what y'all are doing or why y'all are sharing space. That is very scary, especially in a chosen community of friends. Um, Family is a different beast because, you know, most of your family you do not choose, but your chosen community, and y'all choosing not to communicate, crazy, 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 crazy work. There's so much product at the back of my hair. Oh my gosh. That is going to need a fine tooth comb. I'm gonna have to steal my mom's. I don't think I packed mine. Ugh, that is pretty terrible back there. Do what we can to save as much hair, but that is just like a ball that came out. Oh, my poor hair. Anyways, there is still so much. One thing about me is my head is big. Um, my voice, one sec. My head is big. Remember I got a concussion. Oh, I don't even remember what year. Got a concussion on the job as a retail manager, and a like an inventory box just kind of like fell and like hit me right in the temple. I remember I went to a doctor and he remarked at how big my head is and how weak my neck was to support it. Um, and so I was like a prime concussion and like whiplash candidate. I just found it so funny because I was aware of how big my head was. I think wearing an afro often made my head look big because of my hair, but it's just in general like a big head. There used to be a store at the Toronto Eaton Center in the mall near like the Queen Street entrance on the low level, like on the lowest level. And across from Foot Locker, I believe. And it was just a man who sold like hats for big people. And so if anyone knows where that man went, please let me know where he's selling now because I can't remember the company name or his name, but I used to buy hats from there because my head is enormous. And my braider especially knows how big my head is because it takes her extra time to braid it. And not only that, my hair um, is quite thick, quite thick. Like this is less than a quarter of my hair, and look at the density. Um, when I moved to Toronto and started getting my hair braided more often, I was trying out a few braiders here and there. And whenever I would go to people, they would always look at my complexion and think that I had some fairly easy to manage hair. And then they would start trying to manage said easy to manage hair. and have a rude awakening. Um, Braider once said to me, I can't remember who, but I don't even think this was a braider. This might have been the woman who, one of my hairstylists when I was still living back home, a black woman though, in London, Ontario. She was like, your hair is the blackest thing about you because it is very much not super uh mixed race hair. So, but I'm blessed. I do love my hair. It's definitely taught me a lot about patience. Sometimes I hate it because, it's still trying to teach me about patience, and I don't think I'm a very patient person. I wouldn't say I hate it. That's a strong word. I wouldn't say I hate my hair. I just think sometimes I am exhausted by it, if that makes sense. But now living in Toronto and having so many options for hair care and hairstylists is such a blessing. And I love getting to play around with styles and colors and all those types of things, and very much in love with my hair and so thankful that I went natural. I went natural when I was in grade 11, maybe. I don't think grade 10, I think grade 11. I was relaxing it from, I want to say maybe grade 6. I'm not really sure. And then my hair became like resistant to the relaxer. Like we went into the salon to my girl. We put relaxer in, and it was the same strength, same routine we'd always done. And it just really didn't do anything that time other than burn my scalp, but it didn't really straighten my hair, didn't really relax my hair. It just really burnt my scalp bad. Um, and then she was like, okay, well, we need to wait a little bit longer before we it didn't burn my scalp that bad that time. This is actually what happened. So it really didn't do much. And she's like, well, we have to wait like X number of weeks before putting in another relaxer. And like, I think she said, oh, we'll put it in stronger or we'll put it in longer. I can't remember. And so we went back after X amount of time and she put it in and it did straighten my hair, but it also tore up my scalp. I remember on the car ride home, I like touched my scalp and I could feel that it was exposed, like burnt, like no skin on one section. And that was enough for me to say absolutely not. And that was my last relaxer. And I just never looked back. I grew it out for a bit. And then I went and did the big chop. And I have been natural ever since. And it's been such a blessing. It was such a hard thing to, again, not just have um, an afro, but like such a tiny afro, like a short, I call it tiny because it's short, afro, being one of the only Black kids in my school, in town, etc. So it was a very uncomfortable change for me. But I'm so glad that I stuck to it. I know I rocked some wigs for a bit during the adjustment because it was really weird. It's so weird how when you do stuff to not look like yourself for so long and then you revert back to what is actually you naturally can be really hard. Like I used to dye my hair all the time. I haven't dyed my hair. I started dyeing my hair back to black, which is still not my natural hair color, but much closer to my natural hair color. Um, Last winter. And I'd done it once before in like the last like 10 years. And it's so weird that sometimes when I'm looking in the mirror, I like actually have to remind myself it's me, which is odd that like the natural, because I also haven't dyed it in a while. Like even black. So you can't really tell here. In the summer, it will get much lighter. Um, but like seeing myself as myself does not feel like me. I think like a small version of that is like when you have nail extensions on and you adjust to, how to pick up things, how to type, how to do everything in your life with longer nails, and then you remove them, you feel like you can't type, you can't pick things up. It's that relearning of you, that can be really, really difficult. So it's weird. Yeah, there's still moments where I don't recognize myself. This is my first time putting lighter color braids in, since I started doing my darker hair. And even that was an adjustment. Um, and so I don't know. I guess for folks who change their hair all the time, they're just used to it, in terms of coloring. But yeah, I guess I just take a little bit longer to adjust. So yeah, I think I'm going to call it a video for now. And I guess this is my first video where it's just a yap session. And maybe I'll come back later as the hair progresses. Um, I brought home, in terms of products, we're going to be doing a Palmer's coconut oil formula with vitamin E, so deep conditioning protein treatment. I also have Aunt Jackie's Power Wash Intense Moisture Clarifying Shampoo. I love this post braid. A clarifying shampoo is so great. And then this is like my favorite conditioner at the moment. Carol's Daughter. Love, love down Carol's Daughter. Goddess Strength, and it smells so good. This one is, oh, like I love this. Whenever I use this, people people are always like, your hair smells so good. They also have when I'm back in Toronto, I'll show you. There's like this spray sort of oil thing they have that is so good. And I swear that's like sometimes all the scent I need for people to go, ooh, wow. But this is castor oil, ginger, and black cumin seed. And it's for weak, breakage prone hair. My hair is always prone to breakage. Um, and it just is so great. Love, love this. I've had a hard time finding it and recently discovered that Walnut in Canada has been selling it. And then As I Am, which is another brand I really like. I have their dry and itchy scalp care, which is an olive oil and tea tree oil treatment. Really love this. What I should have brought home is little hood attachment for your dryer to kind of do a heat treatment for all of this. Um, I did not, so we will do the best with what we can do. But yeah, we're gonna get this at least washed today. I'm gonna head back to the city tomorrow. So I might do a wash and then just some plaits and do a braid out. Um, 2 days from now. I don't know what I'm doing for New Year's Eve. We shall see. But for now, I'm a jump and I will talk to y'all later. Bye.